From closed session, we have no reportable action, and like to note that Commissioner Miller has joined us as well. Welcome.
Hey, thanks. It's been a while.
Next item, please.
Your next item is to discuss options for funding CalPERS unfunded pension liability.
Good afternoon. Bob Davison, Executive Director. The current JPA agreement was codified in the cable franchise ordinance, the cable television ordinance, which is in the Sacramento County Code and in all the member agencies have adopted ordinances. The commission is set to sunset in December 31st of 2024. Today's not to discuss the sunset other than related to the discussing the pension liability, but the staff does plan to bring back an item well before the sunset on whether the sunset date should remain as is or whether it should be set at some other date. So that will be an item for the future, and it will be addressed well before the 2024 date for the current sunset. But whether the commission sunsets or not, staff is recommending that the commission's unfunded pension liability be addressed. CalPERS prepares reports for JPAs such as ours, and they're prepared every year. It's actually they redo the valuation every 2 years. The most current report shows that the unfunded pension liability for the commission as of today is $800,000 approximately. Were the commission to terminate today, though, there would be a termination liability, and that number, which would essentially be what the member agencies would owe CalPERS if the commission was going to terminate and that CalPERS was going to take over the pension responsibilities, that number would be between $3 and $3.7 million. That would be based upon discount rate assumptions. So with that, we feel that it makes sense for this board to give staff direction. Also, I believe it has always been the responsibility of the member agencies to take on the liabilities of the JPAs when they do sunset. But there's actually been recent legislation that says that if a JPA is terminated, that the member agencies of that Joint Powers Authority are liable for the pension liabilities of that JPA. So with that, staff looked at several options for addressing the pension liability, and we have 3 options before you today. Option 1 is that we make additional payments to that we make additional payments to CalPERS. Essentially, it'd be like if you had a car loan and you had a payment, but then you made extra payments on that car loan, so you'd be paying the principal down. And part of that recommendation is that starting this budget year, we can make a $500,000 payment to CalPERS to address that pension liability. Option 2 today would be to make payments into a trust, and this would be similar to the CalPERS other than post-employment benefit trusts that we currently pay into for those other than pension post-employment benefits. While we participate in that trust, CalPERS doesn't currently have a trust for pension liability. They're actually creating one. There are outside agencies that do have trusts similar to the CalPERS trust. In talking to CalPERS staff and also in talking to Best and Krieger lawyers that are adept at that are very knowledgeable about CalPERS, the thought is that investing in such a trust, especially with a potential short time frame for termination, would not be a good idea because those trusts invest in more long-term investments, and with such, there's more volatility, and so with the potential short-term for this termination and paying of this pension liability, that investment-wise, that would not make sense. And another option is not to make such payments or to amortize the payments over a longer period. And then the downside of that option is that when and if the JPA does terminate, that it would certainly leave the member agencies with the obligation to pay for that pension liability. So with that, we are recommending option 1, as I just outlined, And certainly I can answer any questions that you might have.
So we have any questions of Bob?
Bob, thanks for this report. On the options 2 and 3, you listed some downsides associated. I didn't see any listed with option 1. I assume that obvious downside would be that we have less money available to spend on whatever we may deem appropriate, but is there anything that you think that we have to, would prevent us from being able to get our job done by going down option 1, or are there any substantial downsides you can see associated?
I don't believe there's a significant downside to that. I mean, it's a larger number. This is something that we will actually bring to the next budget meeting. Your board will have full review of that number and what the impact would be on the budget, and certainly can make adjustments at that time. But I think that really is the only downside is the impact on the remaining budget.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so if there's no other questions, we'll open public comment. We have no one signed up to speak. So does anybody want to run down here right now and speak? Except Gary. We'll close public comment and ask for board deliberation and/or a motion.
I move the staff recommendation for option 1.
Second.
So we have a motion and a second. Everybody vote on screen.
Okay, motion carries.
All right, excellent.
I would just say, I would imagine we're probably one of the few member agencies with CalPERS to be fully funded.
We'll see.
And just a side note that, I'm sure on everybody's council or board they sit on, this is a topic that comes up. And with the city of Elk Grove, we've been making advance payments too, because this is obviously a huge concern going forward. So thank everybody for supporting this.
Thanks.
Next item, please.
Here's your calendar year 2019 investment policy for the pool investment fund.
Bob Davison again. As the commission is a participant in the county's pooled investment fund, it's required that we adopt not we, but the board adopts the investment policy every year. So staff recommends that the board receive and file the calendar year 2019 investment policy for the pooled investment fund.
Okay. Any questions of Bob on that? See no questions, we'll open public comment. I have nobody signed up for that as well. Close public comment. Council deliberation.
We receive and file.
Okay, so receive and file, no comments? Okay, perfect. Next item, please.
Do you need a motion to move to receive and file this?
We do not.
Okay.
Your next item is review of franchise and PEG fees remitted by the Consolidated Communications, Inc. for the period January 1st, 2015 through December 31st, 2017.
So I'm happy to report that we did an audit of Consolidated Communications for these 3 years, and it was a clean audit with no findings. So therefore, it's recommended the board receive and file the review of franchise and PEG fees remitted by Consolidated Communications from January 1st of 15 through December 31st of 17.
Okay, any questions for Bob? Hearing none, we'll open public comment. No one signed up to speak. We'll close it. And unless there's any deliberation, let's receive and file only. Any other comments by anybody? Okay, we've received it and we'll file it. Next item, please.
Your next item is a review of franchise and PEG fees remitted by AT&T Inc. for the calendar year 2016 and 2017.
So this is another audit similar to the one we just talked about. This is for 2 years through March of 2 years for 2016 and 2017. Unlike the last audit, this one did have findings, but I'm very happy to report that, I want to express appreciation to AT&T that no sooner do we have these audit findings, we contacted AT&T, we asked them to pay. We've already received a check for $117,000 in payment for the amounts that we said that they had underpaid, and so we have that check. It's been cashed, and I appreciate AT&T for handling that so quickly. So with that, I recommend the board receive and file the review of franchise and PEG fees remitted by AT&T for calendar years 16 and 17.
Bob, I just want to make one comment in my review that I had with you last week going over the agenda. You told me the check was in the mail.
The check was in the mail then? The check's been received?
Actually been received, which is the more important part. Well, the more important part, if it doesn't bounce when it goes in.
Yeah, Karen, do we know that yet?
Deposited on the 1st of March, so we'll see.
Okay.
We can go out to dinner.
All right. So I'll open public comment. No one signed up to speak. We'll close. And it's a receive and file, and we'll go to the next item unless there's any other comments from the commission. No comments? Let's go to the next item, please,
Your
Renee.
next item is Resolution Number 2019-001, revising the fixed assets capitalization policy.
So this item was recommended by the auditor that does the cable commission audits, not the cable company audits. And their recommendation was that we were assigning salvage values to equipment that we would surplus. Mostly when we get to the point of time where we're surplusing equipment, it's virtually valueless. So it was a correction that they recommended. This is an update to the fixed asset policy to say that rather than assume a salvage value, we're going to assume that the salvage value or the termination value of fixed assets is zero. With that, I recommend that the board approve the resolution revising the fixed asset capitalization policy, as well as the revised fixed assets capitalization policy attached as Exhibit I.
Okay, do we have any questions for Bob?
I'd move resolution 2019-001.
Okay, we've got a motion, but I'll go open public comment, close public comment, and we have Mr. Miller as the motioner. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. Please vote on your screen.
Motion carries.
Perfect. Next item, Renee.
Your next item is your calendar year 2018 surplus property list.
So speaking of fixed assets, this is a list of fixed assets that we are surplusing or have surplus in calendar year 2018. It's just a list of equipment that we have surplus. It had virtually little to no value. With that, I recommend that the board receive and file the calendar year 2018 surplus property list.
Okay, so if no one signed up to, I'll open public comment. No one signed up to speak. Close public comment. Any deliberation, or just take this as a receive and file?
Just a question, if I could, Mr. Chair. So it says according to the fixed assets disposal policy, so what does happen with this? Does it get recycled? Do you put it with one of the public agencies that sells material by the pallet, such as this, or do you offer it to schools or to other nonprofits? What is the?
We surplus it through the county of Sacramento.
So you get a nominal value. Do you get any nominal value coming back, or basically they handle the disposition of it?
Correct.
And even though some of this may be dated or maybe it's broken or no longer repairable, I can't imagine everything in this list is broken. It's just maybe a bit dated. Is there the ability to there may be some nonprofits or small organizations, again, I know without getting us into some bogged down process for making this available. I mean, this is very clean. You can just send it to the County of Sacramento. They do the regular sales, put it on pallets, and it's gone. But I'm not so sure that it would necessarily be the best use for it. Some of this would be very, very, very dated equipment. But I don't know, Bob. I'd just be curious to know your thoughts on that.
I would say most of this equipment is absolutely useless, but I hear what you're saying, and that there could be pieces of equipment that have some use. I do know that we have lent out equipment before, and we've gotten it back. Mostly it's been to a member agency or a channel licensee, and not to schools and others outside. I think that you're bringing up a good point. I don't have an answer better than that for you today. We can review that and bring that this policy back at a future meeting and discussing if there's the ability to make availability to.
Yeah, I'm not expecting a lot of work on it, and some of this might even be in the category of antique. You get a VCR, Sony VCR, but Again, it may be this, some entity could use that, and I guess they could go out to the sale and purchase it on a pallet or on a piecemeal basis. So again, I don't want you to do a lot of work on it. Or maybe that, I trust that it's all been amortized out and that you're disposing of it properly. That's not the question. But maybe as you look at the list, if there was something we could make available, if we had a list of folks who might take that equipment and reutilize it. Again, I raised that question, and again, I don't want to take a lot of time.
I think it's a good point. Maybe one of the answers would be add another step before this goes to salvage. We offer it to, we put it out there in a distribution manner, say this is what's available. If you can use it, if you can't use it, it's going to salvage.
So we can review that, bring that back. I do want to talk to legal counsel about ramifications. And I've heard you say simple process. I would agree with that. I would not want to implement any process that is inordinately cumbersome to staff.
And to me, the majority of the burden would be on whoever the recipient would be. We would just say, here's the list, and if you want it, you reserve it and come and get it. Otherwise, it goes to salvage, and give them a 15-day window and move it on.
Yeah, potentially release a list, put it on our website.
Yeah.
So we will review that.
Okay.
And bring it back at a future meeting.
Good item, Don.
If I could, just want to, maybe we can work through, the Educational Consortium. I see Liz here, but, you've got not just public schools, but you have, private charter schools, small parochial schools, in fact, who may have technology available, but maybe not on the same platform that, other either larger districts or entities that have a little more wherewithal. And so it may be that, again, assuming that it fit with, the proper, disposition, framework in the law, that you can make that available. And maybe, certainly SEC has pretty, deep roots, with, young people and teachers and instructors. And so, again, maybe all this is so obsolete that the kids wouldn't know, even what it was if you put it in front of them. So it's that far technologically behind. But I just, again, I'm curious, and I don't mean belabor the conversation here, but just that thought occurred to me that there might be some usefulness.
Are you looking for your 8-track?
Huh? Well, I've got that at home. I got boxes of 8-tracks, so.
If there's nothing else.
I think we're a little more beyond that here in this list. So.
Receive and file. Go to the next item, please.
Your next item is your general administration report.
Okay, so this is my general administration report, and I have several items. The first item is an update on the Federal Communications order that we've discussed at previous meetings that we're calling the in-kind proceeding, and Josh Nelson from Best and Krieger will update you on that item.
Thanks, Bob. So just as a brief reminder for the board, the in-kind proceeding is something the FCC is looking at that would allow cable franchisees to deduct the fair market value of in-kind contributions they provide to the commission and similar franchising entities. This would include things like actual licensed space. So the potential fair market value of that is pretty substantial. So we would be looking at significant reductions in our franchise fees if this were to go through. We have been working with a coalition of other affected entities to oppose this, and we don't have much to update you on as far as the proceedings going this afternoon. Like a lot of projects at the FCC, this slowed down during the recent federal government shutdown. So there hasn't been really any significant progress since your last meeting, but we'll continue to monitor this proceeding, participate in you, and update the board as appropriate.
And one other thing I'll add is we drafted letters, Chair Detrick signed letters that went to Ami Bera, Doris Matsui, Tom McClintock, Jerry McNerney, Dianne Feinstein, and Kamala Harris. So those letters were sent. And we'll keep abreast of this. And working with the coalition that we're participating with Best and Krieger, there may be future meetings, possibly with elected officials if this gathers steam. And we would be looking certainly to board members for, I'm not sure how many we would need at certain meetings, but we'd be contacting the chair and possibly other board members to come to the sit-down meetings with elected officials to discuss this issue. Okay, that's the first item. The second item is the request for proposals for closed captioning services. As this board may remember from the budget meeting, we had a discussion of closed captioning that we'd gone quite a while without doing an RFP. So it was requested, I believe by Chair Detrick, but it was requested that we do an RFP for closed captioning services in time for the 2019 budget meeting. So with that, an RFP was released. It was sent to 20 closed captioning providers. And as of last Monday, we received 4 responses. So we will be reviewing those responses and bringing a recommendation for one or more of those captioning companies to be the vendor for closed captioning services for the next year and possibly years after that. One thing I do want to point out that staff did that I thought was a good idea is we did a test for each of the captioning companies that submitted a proposal. And we created about a half hour of meeting, it was pulled together from about 2 or 3 meetings. And we actually set up a time that each of the captioning companies that wanted to provide services would caption that meeting. They were required to send in a transcript within an hour, but we were able to review how their captioning went, what the transcripts looked like, and how they were to work with, certainly with the technology of the encoders and the other equipment that is required to interface with in order for captioning to work. So anyway, with that, I feel that we are going to get some, we haven't reviewed the proposals yet, but I feel we'll have good proposals to review and have a good recommendation for you at the June meeting. Perfect. Next item, there's currently a vacant seat on this board. The JPA requires that small cities that are defined as having a population of 80,000 or less share a representative. And Folsom sat their member for a while, and that Andy Morin was on the board for many years. And then more recently, Galt has had that member serve. There have been interest from both Galt and Rancho Cordova to actually have their representative serve as the voting member on this board. And if the way that gets worked out is actually this board or this commission or cable commission staff doesn't make doesn't pick who serves. It's up to the 3 cities to basically decide who they're going to seat. And I know one of the cities proposed a rotation. At this point in time, we haven't heard that there's been concurrence from all 3 cities on that rotation. There were other factors. I believe that some of the council members that would have served from those cities actually had some conflicts and couldn't be at today's meeting anyway. But this is a situation that will probably get resolved before the next meeting, but I want to bring that up to the board. Also to point out that the city of Folsom, their population is at 78,000 as we speak, so it could be within a year or 2 that Folsom would have its own seat on the board. I believe Rancho Cordova's population is around 74,000. There's significant development there. I can't predict how many years that will be, but you know, that could be coming soon also.
Okay. Matt?
Thanks, Bob. As you mentioned, Folsom is, by my calculation, a year or 2 max away from getting to their 80,000. At what point? How do we get the trigger for them to get a member? Is there some sort of census we're looking for? At what point do we know that happens?
So if I remember correctly, it's the most recent Department of Finance numbers that are released annually.
And then, so the moment we get that report that one of them is over 80,000, we'll just initiate with that city?
That's correct. The JPA is self-executing, so they're automatically entitled to a voting seat.
Thank you.
Perfect. All right.
Okay, item number 4 on staff status. Just want to make your board aware, if you're not already aware, Tim Ray, who's been a longtime government affairs representative from AT&T, and I know he's worked with many of your offices, and he's worked with cable commission staff. He has they informed us that he was leaving AT&T. I don't know if it was for retirement or if it's for another position, but Tim Ray is no longer with AT&T, and we have a new representative. Her name is Alice Perez, and so just to point that out, and also welcome Alice Perez. And I'll have to say, we've actually had about 3 or 4 complaints already from AT&T that Alice has helped us handle, and she's been really great to work with. So we're happy to have Alice Perez as that representative for AT&T.
Hold on a second. Karen, you reset, or we lost our screens?
I thought something was going on.
They're going down. It went down.
They're all down.
They're all down.
They're advertising for Sacramento County right now.
I think we should make a motion to charge Sacramento County for the advertisement.
We're back.
Okay, I got it. I started it again.
It's back on.
I did.
Gotta log in,
Okay,
yeah.
everybody's got to log back in.
Yeah, everybody has to log in?
Yes,
Login?
yes.
Just tap the login. Oh, and it just automatically turns on?
Everybody can get in? Got in? Okay.
That it?
I think we're up and running. Everybody good?
I think Alice took care of it for us. Thank you.
We'll blame it on SMUD.
There you go.
Sorry, Bob.
Okay, so we will resume. Not sure if any of that was missed, but anyway, I just had pointed out that Alice Perez was the new representative for AT&T. So the next item is the status of the 1819 PEG fee-funded projects, and I'll just go through this really quickly at member agencies. The first, Citrus Heights, they completed a lighting project. It's actually made a difference, noticeable difference that you can see on TV. Things were brighter. And they also made control room improvements. So those PEG projects are completed.
You can see
Am I
Miller's
right,
beard. You can
Mr.
see
Miller?
Miller's beard
Yes,
now.
it's a lot brighter in our room. I noticed that when they turned the lights on.
So is it harder to fall asleep?
Pardon, you need sunglasses. Yeah, it is harder to fall asleep. Thanks.
Okay.
No, great job.
The city of Elk Grove completed their PEG-funded projects for this year. They upgraded some control room equipment, replaced microphones, and they purchased a new camera. Folsom had a project mostly upgrades to their control room, and they had some conference chamber overflow rooms, and those projects are mostly done. I guess not quite. Galt is on track with their project. They replaced a guard booth and a dais security door, and there's flood control work that is being done by their staff. I'm not sure if everybody on the board knows, but the city of Galt, where their chambers is prone to flooding in the wet seasons, and this has been a rather wet season, so that may have led to that project being a little bit delayed, but there's certainly needed flood control improvements there. Rancho Cordova, they also have lighting improvements that are finished, and they had other miscellaneous projects that are mostly finished as well, or ordered. A couple of items they're still waiting for. The city of Sacramento had a major chambers audio-video upgrade that they'll have to do during one of their breaks, and they plan to do that either this spring or during their summer recess. So this is likely a PEG project that's going to roll over into the next year, but we'll be reviewing that at the June budget meeting. The County of Sacramento, there's 5 PCs in this chambers that are used for meetings, and those have been replaced. There's an agenda management system, including a video archive, that is still being reviewed, so it's not a completed project. And the hearing room, too, there's some camera controllers that were replaced. And also Metro Cable, a lot of the control room equipment back there has been installed, and there's a video file storage server that was installed as well. And that's my quick rundown of the PEG projects, but in most cases, most of them are funded, installed, or on their way, and in a few cases, they might roll over into the next year.
Bob, are the local jurisdictions on the hook for any of this equipment, or is this all entirely paid for through the PEG fees?
So if the So each of the agencies makes a grant request to us, and we vet that and approve it. In some cases, and I don't have the specifics, but what we're funding completely. But like I know that the County of Sacramento projects, I know that there's more to it than just what the Cable Commission is funding. And that's through the county's budget process, so I'm not privy to exactly what that entails or what those numbers are. Okay. And speaking of PEG projects and the status of the ones that were approved last year, as coming up for the June budget meeting, we do a call for funding for PEG projects. We send that out to all the member agencies. We send that out to the channel licensees. And it's commend Karen. It's a type of process that's like herding cats, but Karen and her staff does a great job of managing it with all the different parties involved. And every year we start the process, we make the call for funding, and we have good communication. And I think we almost get requests every year from every member agency and every channel licensee. So that process is beginning in the very near future. So with that, number 7, actually I have 2 staff-related items. First, I want to introduce Jennifer Nagatoshi. Jennifer, can you stand up? Jennifer was hired as a temp in September of 17, and we've recently, actually August, it's not that recent, but we haven't had a meeting since, have hired her on as a non-temp permanent staff senior office assistant. Just so you know, excuse me, we have many cable complaints. Some of them come from your offices to the Cable Commission. Jennifer has her hand in most of those, and she does a good job communicating with the cable companies and making those complaints not be get resolved relatively quickly. So thank you, Jennifer, for that. And then I also want to point out, if you recall last year we promoted Kevin Benyon to technical coordinator, and unfortunately shortly after that he left. It was for a great opportunity for him, so it was certainly a loss for the commission, but we certainly wish Kevin well. But with that, we have to replace him, and Dallin Swenson. Dallin? Okay, Dallin, why don't you stand up? Dallin Swenson is been recently hired as a technical assistant. He brings a solid set of studio and video production skills, including performing camera duties, system integration, and editing. He's worked for Fox 40, the Rivercats, Access Sacramento, and he has experience in performing freelance video work and holds a degree in digital filmmaking and video production from the Art Institute of Sacramento. So with that, I would like to welcome Dallin aboard.
Well, welcome. It's always nice to get some new blood with new ideas, and so welcome you both, and glad to have you on board.
And with that, those are the 8 items that I had for staff status today.
Yeah, I wanted to step back real quick to sub-item 2, if you don't mind, regarding the RFP for the closed captioning.
Yeah.
What time period are we looking at to get a contract for? And I ask this because we're going to be looking at a time period in the relatively near mid future where we're going to have some ability to have automatic transcription of audio services. I imagine, I know those exist currently. They might not be good enough for us, or it could be too cost prohibitive. I imagine at some point, though, that'll change. So I'm curious about the length of contract we're looking at here.
So the length of contract is just a year, but with the ability to extend it on a yearly basis.
Okay.
Is there any cancellation clauses in there as well?
Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, I'd have to check on whether it's
Typically
without
90,
cause,
90
but I think
days, is that usually their typical?
yeah, I'd have to confirm, but I don't believe there's a non-cause. I think it's a year term.
It's a year term with the ability to extend, and I believe that there is a termination clause. And since we haven't written the agreement yet, I think there's the ability to make sure that that is in there. So we will review that before the next meeting. And just to point out that Metro Cable staff is keeping their finger on the pulse of the auto, I'm probably not pronouncing it correctly, but the auto captioning. And we've done some testing with various results. The equipment is rather expensive, but could potentially be part of the mix for captioning in the future. So we are certainly looking at that. And actually, Dallin and our production director, Kristen Riggs, are going to it's called the NAB conference, and it's in Las Vegas, and it's happening within the next month or so. And many of the auto closed captioning providers are at that conference, and so our staff can get the latest and greatest on how that's working and how that could work for us.
Thanks, Bob.
Perfect. So we can move on to the next item if there's no more comments or questions. Renee?
Your next item is your channel licensee reports.
Okay, Gary, here's your big chance.
Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for all you do on behalf of the PEG channel licensees. I'm Gary Martin, Executive Director at Access Sacramento. Mostly I have a video to share with you, but with your permission, I'm going to add back into public comment on 10 at that time in order to comment on the FCC FPRN that was the first part of Bob Davison's report. So if I may, I'll come back at that time to talk about that particular topic. There's a variety of new equipment that's come at Access Sacramento. We've seen a growth year, and part of that is in large part due to the new equipment that we have. And so with that, I'd like to show you a short video of some programs that come from Access Sacramento and from our members. The delightful part about all of this is that this is programming essentially not seen anywhere else, and it is a part of the public access, the democracy in action, their community of voice available to those people who otherwise might be coming to be guest speakers at all of your City Council and Board of Supervisors meetings. Instead, they share their voice on our channels. So let's take a look at the video.
Welcome to Sacktown Underground. I'm your host, Tiffany G, along with my lovely co-host,
Celestial Thomas. Happy 2019, everyone.
and happy Chinese New Year's for all who are listening. Do we have a fabulous show for you?
So our business specializes in Chicano-style tattoo work, the black and gray, classic, fine line tattoo work. So a lot of our artists here are really experienced in that. Other than that, we do have other artists that do traditional work here as well. We have script, realism. So it all lands in that black and gray category.
To see the key in what is going to take place to get in such a focus in stepping into all that he has for you. That is what the show is about today.
So we're going to look at the leaders of California. The man on the left is Pio Pico. He was the last governor, Mexican governor, of California. The man on the right is Mariano Vallejo. Mariano Vallejo was the leader of the Army. He was probably the most powerful civil figure in California and controlled most of Northern California, while Pio Pico controlled most of Southern California.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of The Muzzy Show. Thank you everyone for making it happen. And so today we have an exciting show. As you know, it's a month of love, so we'll be talking about love.
Why do we put on this festival? First of all, 33% of District 8 is Latino. The largest single ethnic group in the district. When I went to some leaders in the Latino community and asked them how I could get to know the community, they said, we're so spread out, we hardly know each other.
We have been and will always be a city of inclusion. We celebrate the Latino community today. We celebrate our rich diversity. We are in the midst of the great Mural Festival.
Que vive la música. Gracias por bailar.
These programs generally don't appear with this type of content on local television channels, the commercial channels. This is a part of the non-commercial voice of your community, and we appreciate this opportunity to serve that mission of making a difference, one voice at a time. And with your permission, Council or Chair Detrick, I'll come back on item 10 on an open comment.
Okay, Gary.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Yes, Liz Rhodes, come on down.
I feel like dancing after that. Good afternoon. I'm Liz Rhodes. I'm with the Sacramento Educational Cable Consortium, and I'm going to try something a little different today for a report. I wanted to show you some things on our website, but if you're one of those people like me where you try and do the website thing live, it doesn't work, I'm going to show you a video and walk you through that. And then tacked on to the very end of that is a short description and kind of a highlight of one of our SIVA studio labs and a profile that we're doing. I'm going to show you how that integrates into our website. And then you're going to see the debut of the SECC mobile production lab that you funded. We have it back and it's operating and it's out as we speak. Wanted to bring it here today, but you guys got trumped. It needs to go out to a school. That's our priority. So if we could roll that tape or play that video, I'm gonna start with first thing you're gonna see is, I get to talk over this. First thing is going to be, this is our front page. And we have a slider that shows all of the highlights of the week or sometimes of the month. We have a boot camp coming up this summer, very exciting. And we've completed our Sacramento Student Media Day, which was phenomenal out at Center High School. If you scroll down, you see what's playing on the channels now, some highlights, and then this is the most important part. This here is the logos of all of our partners, and we click directly to all of their sites. Big thing I'm going to show you is SIVA Studios. As part of the pull down, you see there, funded by the Sacramento Metropolitan Cable Television Commission. All the participating sites are listed right there on the left. And if you scrolled all the way down, you see about close to 50 of them. The ones highlighted in blue are live, and we're doing this for every site. We're doing an overview of and a profile of what those sites are, and they're using them, school districts are using them. So the first one we're going to see is Toby Johnson.
My name is Dana LaChapelle, and this is our SIVA studio located at Toby Johnson Middle School in Elk Grove, California.
Good morning, Toby Johnson. It's First Things First period.
That means it's time for First Things First on TJTV.
This program, I like to call it broadcast journalism. The kids have to meet deadlines, they have to design, storyboard, pull the whole package together, all on a timeline. And these are 12 and 13-year-olds, and so we think that that's a really powerful way to do education, and we think that there are skills that are derived out here that we can't necessarily teach in a traditional academic course.
I love that you're using this hand right here for her, and I like that you started looking at her, but when you started this interview...
I think having the ability to give students access to this experience is priceless. And that being said, there's a huge price tag on it. And if we didn't have people that were helping us, if we didn't have the SIVA Studio grants, if we didn't have the district and our site saying this is important, it would be such a tragedy, because what these kids do every morning, it's important. And I really think it brings a lot to our school and to our community.
And now,
we gotta do band! Come on, guys!
And 3, 2, 1, go! And cut. All right, that's the wrap, guys. Let's get out of here.
the students are so excited about this. We've had it out at a couple of different sites, and it really brings a new dimension to them. And it brings a huge new dimension to SECC and its staff, and that we're able to go out and capture a lot of programs and activities that we just didn't have the capacity for. So thank you very much. We're thrilled to death with it. It's affordable. It came in everything under $85,000. We have a few bucks left to spend that we're going to do at NAB. But it is fully operational. We've had some tremendous community help in terms of pulling it together for such an inexpensive price tag. And the real beauty of it is that it's very functional, and it's something that our students can use. And as you can see, we've already had it out at some of the school sites. Last thing I want to mention to you today is you have in front of you the award night invitation for our 30th annual award night. 30 years of doing this. And we had, what did I think? We had 475 entries this year. So we're running additional judging sessions. Should anybody want to judge next week, I have some openings. We're just added it on today. It's been really, really exciting. That's what we've been doing all week, is looking and judging those videos. Each of the students who have an entry get feedback from 4 judges that evaluates the program. So it's a huge learning process. It's not just about entering and winning. It's about, following directions, bringing your content to us, making sure you have copyright clearance on everything, a huge issue for our students. And then any comments that the judges make goes back, so each student gets to see everything that was said about them. So if you'd like to participate, we'd love to have you. And then the last thing I wanted to mention today is we too have a new employee, a new production assistant. He's a young man that is a graduate of the SIVA program. And it is so exciting to have him be out there and working with the students, especially since we're entering into this entire, SIVA activity and our award night. So just to see that growth and to see the enthusiasm and the excitement of his interaction with the students and telling them, I was there. He actually won a SIVA award, and he won an honorable mention. So he's very proud to show that off. And he also would be here today to meet you, except he's out at a school site working. So with that, I thank you very much for all you do for the schools and for the students. It is very, very much appreciated.
Well, Liz, really, you do the heavy lifting, and what you do is phenomenal for the kids and the schools and the opportunities that are created. And I know I've said it before, those of you who have never gone to the SIVA Awards, it's pretty phenomenal. I mean, there's usually probably 1,000 people there.
We have 1,200 people now.
It's a big deal, and to see the excitements and the kids that are on a team from their school, They're representing their school. It's almost like a rally, and so I've had the opportunity to be one of the co-presenters, and it's pretty exciting to go to. But what you do day in, day out, all year long for all the community in the Sacramento region is phenomenal. And you mentioned the kids are excited about the truck. Look like you're pretty excited about the truck too.
I don't get to drive it. I'm just putting that out there. They won't even give me the keys. But we'd like to bring it down at your June meeting, and we'll be in touch with you, because one of the things that we'd like to do is the students would like to interview you. And it seems like we could do that, perhaps before and after your June meeting. I know your June meeting runs long, but it would be a great opportunity for their students. And as you can see, if you go on our website and you click on those blue links, eventually there'll be a link to every single one of the sites that we'll do the profiles for. We've been working on that, trying to put it in here and there, is that constant comment that comes back is that if it wasn't for, it's like Dana said, if it was not for the funding that you make available, there would not be the match that comes from the district, and there would not be the support that comes from the school site. And it's just taken off. When you think that you funded over 50 of those, that's pretty darn amazing. And the opportunity that's given to our students, plus everything they produce goes on the educational channels. And we teach them about the YouTube and the whole bit. So it really is very fantastic what happens in this community. And I don't think that happens in a lot of places. And you guys just don't take the credit for it that you should, because you do make it possible. So like I said, if you want to come and judge, that's great. If you'd like to present at the award night, let me know. We'd love to have you all participate, with that.
Liz, one other quick comment about the CV is I think one of the things that I was so impressed with, that started with kindergartners. So some of this stuff started with kindergartners all the way up, mostly through high school. There's even a couple of college ones, but pretty impressive to be able to start kids in kindergarten on the videography and interviewing and playing parts and role playing and all that.
And some of the messages, it has to be educational in nature, and the messages that these students put out there, especially just watching, this last week, some of them are heart-wrenching, absolutely. And they are in touch with, and so eloquent about really important topics, from bullying and to some of the other issues that are not quite as well accepted in school. We were looking at one yesterday that just, it tore my heart out. That there was this young girl who has actually gone on, turned down a full scholarship from Stanford because of the issues that she's dealing with and the changes that she wants to make, and she feels she needs to be in a smaller community, and what she has learned, from this community. It's just, it's amazing, and it changes your life when you see that, and the good that you're doing, and it keeps a lot of those kids in school. So
absolutely. Well, thank you.
I care a little bit about it.
I also want to echo what Chair Dietrich said. I've been able to tour a couple of the student studios. They've been very impressive, and back when I was going to Consumnes River College and had to work full-time, and the television classes were a really great way for me to continue my schooling while still having to do that. So it was very valuable.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Liz. I went to the SIVA Awards too, and it was awesome. It's like the Oscars of young kids and video. So great job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, next item, please.
Your next item is your state franchisee reports.
Bill, did you want to speak today? You didn't sign up?
I don't have anything yet.
You don't have anything? Then I guess we're going to leave the floor to Gary.
Before I begin, I do have to ask a question. Did you take classes from me, or was it before my time with Dory Steinman?
I did not take any classes from you at the time, no.
Okay. Well, you missed out. Okay. So on the public side, certainly your staff has kept you abreast of what's going on with the FCC's FPRN, the change of rulemaking and the potential chargeback of dollars against the franchise fee. The Alliance for Community Media, of which I'm on the national board, is doing a Hill Day next Wednesday. And I will be in Washington, D.C. to talk with the local representatives or their technology staffers for Representative Matsui and Amibera and the two senators for Harris and Feinstein. So I'm appreciative of the fact that Chair Detrick has signed letters to the FCC and to the representatives, and that this board is taking a strong hand in joining more than 5,000 comments that have come to the FCC on this topic. And nearly 24 representatives have written letters to the FCC. Likewise, several senators have joined in that pathway. If your individual boards, councils, supervisors have not taken a stance on this piece, I encourage you to do so. Perhaps the most dangerous legislation ever to face PEG is before you right now. The idea that all of the money that normally comes in franchise fees toward the franchise, toward the cable commission, and how that money could be reduced to nearly nothing within the stroke of a pen because of a chargeback for providing the cost of cable channels is really very, very frightening. The ability for the cable companies to provide PEG channels has always been their cost of business and a part of the franchise fee for creating the right of way. For that half of the formula to be changed, for them to be able to charge back their cost of providing these channels to the franchise fee could mean that the money that supports all of the things that Liz and I and all of you at Metro 14 have been able to enjoy for years may go away this year, right away. And so to whatever degree you can individually as part of your councils and supervisors take a stance and join this communication pathway, certainly Best in Krieger and others are a part of fighting this battle. Alliance for Community Media and its members are also doing the same. And I encourage you all to be an advocate on behalf of what you're doing, even beyond what the SMCTC is doing. And I thank you for your opportunity to comment on this piece.
Thank you, Gary. Okay, next item, please.
Your last item is your public comments.
Josh, since we don't have anybody signed up to speak, can we waive the statement?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So I'll open and close public comments since we don't have anybody to speak, and we'll call an adjournment.